Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, AEW Spring Break-Thru. They set a huge milestone in company history. I will be talking about a few things and giving them my congratulations for this huge milestone. Mentioning who I think is going to be the wild card quick one more time. And then the rest of this video, I'm going to do something kind of fun. I did it on a previous video, but we're going to do a second edition of Rasslin Roulette. If you haven't seen the first one, stick around and you'll see how it's played on this episode of Screw the Script. AEW Spring Break-Thru starts tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, which is my time zone. This is going to be a very special episode of Dynamite. Everyone knows that this is a very special episode of Dynamite. They have been kind of counting down the days, the weeks, months leading up to this, and it's finally here. The show looks great. The card looks great. We're going to see a fun debut, possibly, or a return for the wild card match tonight against Hangman Adam Page. I've expressed in the past, and I'll stand by it, I think it's going to be the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, right here. If you've never seen any of his work in the ring, he is a phenomenal talent. He is more of a traditional wrestler. He's not one of the very many that does a lot of high-flying stuff like so many wrestlers do in today's wrestling world, which is, nothing wrong with that. But what he's going to bring to the table is a different approach that you don't see often in AEW. He's more mat-based. He's more technical-based. He really reminds me of like a more raw Kurt Angle. I think if you were to mash Kurt Angle and then maybe like a more raw wrestler who is just more kind of like ruthless, he's like if you took Kurt Angle and added some Pete Dunne to him almost. Maybe that's not the best comparison, but you kind of get what I'm saying. He reminds me somewhat of Kurt Angle, just like his wrestling style and all that stuff. But if you kind of just, dialed up the raw, like, grit sort of wrestling, whereas Kurt Angle was more so like a bona fide Olympian wrestler, and he was. He won an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. We all know that. Josh Alexander, I believe, was also a amateur wrestler before pro wrestling. I could be wrong on that. He very much has the look and the feel. So I'm picking him to be the wild card tonight. Some runner-ups, some honorable mentions, maybe you could call it. I was thinking maybe Wardlow. We haven't seen him in forever, and he's just had, unfortunately, some bouts with bad injuries. We could see a returning Jack Perry. The only other thing that might make sense, if it's not any of those three individuals that I just named, would maybe be a returning Kota Ibushi, because we have not seen him in some time. Not really sure what's going on there. I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or not. And there's some other, other things that it could be. If it's not any of those four names, I'm going to be kind of let down. And this is not Tony Khan. This is not the episode of Dynamite where you want to let fans down. Hopefully it's Josh Alexander or a returning Wardlow, Jack Perry, something along the lines of that. I feel like anything else is going to be kind of a letdown. So that's a real quick, a real quick prediction that I'm going to re-mention again on that wild card match tonight. Another thing I wanted to mention real quick is some praise that Tony Khan and AEW got from Eric Bischoff. Now, I'm not going to read it all, but here's that photo right there. And you can read that while I'm kind of just saying my piece on it. It's interesting to see Eric Bischoff. I would say lately, especially the last few months leading up to this milestone, it kind of seemed like he had a sour taste in his mouth about the fact that, AEW Dynamite is about to pass up WCW Nitro, which, that's like his baby. That's his child. That's his creation in a sense. But hey, that's really good to see. It shows that, it shows what should be given in the pro wrestling community. Whether or not you support AEW or even watch it, it is still, something to congratulate them with. Now let's get to my very fun, well, I at least think it's very fun, engaging game of Rasslin Roulette next. All right, so we're going to do 3 rounds again. I'll make it a little bit quicker. I think I took a little bit too much time last time, but I'm kind of used to it. I got everything up on my laptop still. I said I wasn't going to do this until I learned how to screen share, but really it's not too bad to just use my laptop. I can quickly show you guys, especially now that I realize that it doesn't show up backwards on the screen. So we'll start again with the stipulation. If you haven't seen this before, basically I have 2 wheels. There's a wheel here that's stipulations only, and then I have a separate one on another page that's got only male competitors. I will be doing a female version of this for AEW, and eventually I will do one for WWE for both the men and women. I did add some names, so if you've seen the first one, there was 40. I have 46 now, so here's all the names. And so we're going to do 3 rounds, and we'll start with the stipulation first. I like hearing the noise, so I'm turning up my volume. Let's give it a spin. Let's see what it lands on. So this is a stipulation for, what do we got? For the first match. So a singles match. Pretty basic, but hopefully it doesn't land on that again. We'll get that out of the way. So we'll do 1-on-1. Here's the spin for the names. And we'll see what that lands on. We've got Will Ospreay. Okay. I like that. And we're going to remove these names. So the next time I do it, that we aren't going to get repeats a bunch of the same names. And then eventually when they're gone, I'll probably redo this in the future if this ends up being a fun exercise for people. So Will Ospreay in a singles match against Kevin Knight. Well, hell, we've already seen that. But, hey, you know what? That match was so close between Kevin Knight and Will Ospreay. I think if they went a second time this quick of a turnaround, like Kevin Knight, have a match against Will Ospreay again, see if you can beat him. I am that close to picking Kevin Knight. But I love Will Ospreay, and right now he is in the prime of his career. Kevin Knight is still relatively young. He's 28. He's extremely impressive. I think what would happen is I think Will Ospreay would still win. But I think Kevin Knight, you could also just turn this into a storyline. Like, let's say Will Ospreay beats him in this, exercise here, and Kevin Knight goes to Tony Khan and is like, you know what? I know I can beat him. I know I can beat one of the best, if not the best wrestler in AEW right now. Give me a third shot, Tony Khan, at the next, pay-per-view. That would be fun to watch. I would be all in for that. So, hey, that was the first one. Let's get on to the next one. We're going to give it a spin. See what it lands on for the stipulation this time. Sorry if my ring light is kind of in the way. Let me see if I can center it actually with the wheel. Handicap match. Okay, this will be fun. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to pick... the first name is going to be the person going up against the other 2 competitors. So let's pick the first name here. I wish this wheel did some noise as well, but it doesn't seem like it does. I thought it did the last time. So handicap match. We got Ricochet. All right. So we are going to have Ricochet, and he'll be going against 2 other competitors. So I've got the wheel spinning again. What do we got? Ricochet versus Wheeler Yuta of, the Death Riders that I cannot stand. So 2 heels right now. This is interesting. I wonder if Yuta will get paired with one of the Death Riders, because I do have them all in there. That'd be funny. But it's Wheeler Yuta and Kenny Omega, and Wheeler Yuta versus Ricochet. That's interesting. I don't think Kenny Omega and Wheeler Yuta would get along at all. So, and considering Ricochet is a heel, I think he would take advantage of that and maybe get under the skin of Wheeler Yuta or Omega or both. And maybe they start, maybe the Death Riders just decide, fuck this match. We don't like Kenny Omega, and then they screw him over when the ref isn't looking, and then Ricochet picks up the win. Like, no knock on Kenny Omega, obviously is one of the greatest ever. I mean, I've got his picture right there hung up behind me. I love Kenny Omega, but if this is going to surprise you, well then here it is. I'm gonna pick Ricochet. I think it'll play out exactly in my mind anyway. I really think it would play out the way that I just put it. I think Yuta and Omega just would not get along. It would really disrupt their chemistry in the ring. And yeah, I think the Death Riders would just come out and either say, screw this match, let's just leave Kenny Omega, or let's jump him because he is not a heel. I don't think they would ever jump Ricochet. And then Ricochet, he would stand and be like, oh, hell yeah, like, gloat to the fans, do his cocky bit that he does, and then, hit Kenny Omega with his finisher and win. That's just how I see it. So we'll do one more on this exercise before we close out this episode. All right, final one. Let's give the stipulation a spin. Now, the stipulations I'm not removing, just the names. So I guess it could theoretically land on one that we already did. If it does, I'll spin it again, though. Buried Alive match. Okay, this should be fun. So, a Buried Alive match between these two competitors. Let's get the first one spinning here. Who do we got? Orange Cassidy in a Buried Alive match. Man, of course it's Orange Cassidy. He always gets into these weird-ass stipulation matches. Does anyone remember the Mimosa Mayhem match that he had against Jericho a few years back? That was interesting. All right. Orange Cassidy versus... Who do we got? Claudio. Claudio and Orange Cassidy in a Buried Alive match. That's definitely the easiest one for me. Claudio wins. Very much like the last exercise that we just did, the last fun little Rasslin Roulette, the second round. Very much like I think the Death Riders would screw over Kenny Omega. I think Orange Cassidy would just keep fighting back against Claudio, surprising Claudio. And I think he would just, the Death Riders would get sick of it, and they would just all eventually come out, jump Orange Cassidy, and then they would probably all just bury him alive and stand tall while everyone boos and I get pissed off, because that's probably how it would go. So I'm going to pick Claudio for that one. So hey, thanks for watching this episode of Screw the Script again. Had a lot of fun talking to you guys about the huge milestone that's happening for Dynamite. Let me know what you're most excited for Dynamite tonight. Let me know if you like this Rasslin Roulette game that I'm doing. I'll continue to do it on occasion. Not every video that I release I'll be doing it, but just kind of something fun to do at the end of my videos. So again, thanks for watching. This has been Maverick with Screw the Script. Have a good night.